Hey guys, this video is going to show you how to set up your model cell to complete the first part of the Diffusion Through membrane lab. So in front of you or your partner, depending on if you're home or you are in class, you should have the following items. I'm going to tilt you down a little bit so you can see your setup here. So you should have starch indicator solution, which I realize it's backwards, but that is what it says, I promise. Dental floss, also backwards, but it is what it says. Container labeled glucose, a container labeled starch, and a container labeled water/dialysis tubing. So in order to make our in order to make our model cell, first of all, it's really, really important that you keep these two separate, the starch and the glucose. And it's really important that you keep the pipettes clear as to which one's which. So I have put an S on this one. Hopefully they don't wear off. I just did it in Sharpie, so hopefully it doesn't wear off. And I have put a G for glucose on this one, okay? But it's obviously the starch is really, really cloudy. The glucose is really clear. So that helps you keep track of which is which. But you want to make sure you don't mix up the pipettes accidentally, okay? So in your cup, it says water and dialysis tubing. You have this piece of dialysis tubing. Dialysis tubing is used in dialysis, which is a medical procedure used to filter people's blood. And the reason that it is used is because it acts kind of like a cell membrane. It allows particles to diffuse in and out. So really, the medical professionals are using it to clean someone's blood because their kidneys aren't working, but it can be used in our class to show diffusion. So it's a flat tube, as you can see. But it's kind of like opening a garbage bag. If you wiggle it, which is why it's soaking in the water, by the way. It's very hard to maneuver when it's not in the water. So when it's soaking in the water, that's why it's doing that. So you can kind of wiggle it open like a garbage bag. It's not going to open all the way, although you can sometimes get like a bit of a gap there. You can see that it is open. If it starts to give you a hard time, you can always wet your fingers. This is just water, so you can wet your fingers and redo. So once you have it opened all the way down, you need to take a piece of dental floss. Not a huge piece, not as much as you'd use to actually floss your teeth. That's enough. And you're going to tie off the bottom of this tube. So I'm going to tie it laying down on the table because I can't tie in the air. And then I'll show you what it means or what it looks like. I would do probably 3, if not 4 knots. And you can see I'm leaving myself some space on the top or the bottom. This is actually going to be the bottom when we're done, but it's not tied right at the edge of the tubing. I'm all thumbs when it comes to tying things. Okay, finally got 2 knots in. I would do at least 3, if not 4. In all likelihood, it's going to leak a little bit anyway, but it's all right. It's fine. It would be okay. Okay. So now I have it, and again, this is the bottom, so I have it tied at the bottom. Now what I need to do is I need to put starch and glucose inside of here. That's where these come in. So you're going to find that the starch needs to be stirred. It gets like kind of crusty at the bottom. There's so much starch in it that you really, 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 really need to stir it up. If you can see when I tilt it, you can see it's kind of caked to the bottom. We want to uncake that as much as we can before, before we put our starch into our virtual or artificial cell. Okay, so it looks a little bit better. It's not quite so caked on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 1 squirt. Now this is dried out a little bit, so I'm just going to wet my fingers here just to help me maneuver this tubing a little bit. And I want to take the starch and I'm going to take the pipette and put it down into the dialysis tubing. Squirt it in. That's probably enough. I'm going to do 1 more squirt just for good measure. 2 squirts is probably enough. If your dialysis tubing is really small, which they all should be about this size. I didn't measure them or anything, but they all should be about this size. You can do just 1 if you feel like it's going to get like really full, but it shouldn't really get that full. So then I'm going to do the same thing with the glucose. This one doesn't really need to be stirred. It's nice and clear. It's already, the glucose is already dissolved in there. Put it down in, squirt, and take another one, put it down in, and squirt. So it's at this point that my friends in class are going to need a friend to help them. I know we're not supposed to get that close, but I think if we hold our breath and do it really quick, I think it'll be okay. Because what needs to happen now is we need to take another piece of dental floss and we need to tie the top off. But the challenge here, well, there's apparently a couple of challenges here. The challenge here is that, see, I almost just dropped it, or I did drop it. If I put it down on the table, it's all going to flood out. That's going to be no bueno. So we want to keep it in there. So you need a friend to hold it like this while you come along and tie it around the bottom, underneath the fingers. So I'm going to take a TV timeout because I don't have any friends in here right now. I'm going to take a TV timeout. I'm going to run over to Miss Mitchell and see if she can help me tie this. Okay? BRB. Got it. Thank you, Miss Mitchell. So she held the top right here, and I tied around the bottom, so we're in business. Okay, so now I have my artificial cell that I've made. Now I'm going to actually put this cell into my beaker that is labeled water and dialysis tubing. It's just water now because I took the dialysis tubing out. So I'm going to put it down in there. It's okay if part of it sticks out. It's not that big of a deal. But you want the actual cell itself down in there, even if like the ends are sticking out. It's no big deal. It's also totally okay if this ends up leaking a little bit. Not a big deal. You're going to take your starch indicator solution. Some of you might have it in this container. Some of you may have it in just another beaker labeled starch indicator solution because I don't have enough of these for quite everybody. So depending on the group, you may have it in just a beaker. But it's that orangey colored, amber colored solution. And you're going to put in, I don't know, you kind of have to decide what you want is for the outside of the cell to look kind of like apple juice. That might be a little more than apple juice, but that's okay. A little like maybe if that was what you were going to the bathroom, you might want to drink some more water because you're a little dehydrated according to that, if that was your B. Okay, you can kind of swirl it around a little bit. And that's your setup. That's it. You are done and done. So obviously we're going to do some stuff with this and we're going to let it sit for a little while and kind of do its thing. But as far as creating the artificial cell, that's it. You're done and done. So, happy watching. In your lab, you want to make sure that you write down under number 9, which is on page 2. I did number of the pages. On page 2, you want to make sure you write down what do you predict is going to happen here. So we set this whole thing up. We put starch and glucose on the inside, and we put water and starch indicator solution on the outside, which is just iodine. What do we think is going to happen? And then we're going to work together to show you some of the possibilities of what could possibly happen. So that you know what you're thinking and things do happen.